For months leading up to the concert, anticipation had been steadily building. Flyers circulated across churches, radio stations promoted the event, and gospel fans spread the word in fellowship halls and choir rehearsals. Pastor John P. Key, affectionately called the Prince of Gospel, was scheduled to headline what was billed as one of the most significant gospel gatherings of the year. The weight of his name alone was enough to draw multitudes, a night meant for worship. When anticipation met the unexpected, people traveled from near and far, busloads of church groups making the journey from neighboring states, families packing into vans with snacks and testimonies, and individuals carrying personal stories of how Key's music had sustained them through heartbreak, illness, and even loss. For many, this was not just another concert, it was a pilgrimage. The air was electric even before Key appeared. The stage glowed with radiant lights that seemed to mimic the heavens. Choirs lifted their voices in harmony, their songs rising like incense, preparing the atmosphere for worship. When Key finally stepped onto the stage, the response was overwhelming. The crowd's roar was not simply applause, it was reverence, gratitude, and joy wrapped in one. His smile radiated warmth, his wave felt personal, and the familiar timbre of his voice immediately enveloped the room. From the very first note, the sanctuary transformed. Thousands of voices joined in unison, singing word for word, many with tears streaming down their faces. The music was more than melody. It was healing. Strangers shared testimonies with one another, recounting how songs like Show Up or Jesus is Real had pulled them through depression, illness, or grief. For a moment, the concert felt less like a performance and more like a divine encounter. Everything seemed perfect until the unexpected happened. A sudden shift in atmosphere. Halfway through what had been a flawless set, an unanticipated change shook the room. Key's voice, normally commanding with both pastoral authority and artistic mastery, began to falter. His once energetic movements slowed. His face tightened with discomfort, and confusion spread quietly through the audience. At first, many assumed it was simple fatigue, the natural toll of delivering passionate music with such intensity. But within moments, the signs became impossible to dismiss. Key clutched his chest, his posture sagged, and his normally powerful presence shrank into visible struggle. The band hesitated, continuing briefly as though unsure of what was unfolding. But when Key stumbled mid-song, silence swept across the room. Gasps echoed from every corner of the auditorium. Singers rushed to his side. Stage crew signaled urgently for medical assistance, and the atmosphere of celebration collapsed into dread. What had been a sanctuary of worship became a space of panic and prayer. Fear and faith collide in the crowd. The audience's reaction was as raw as it was revealing. Some screamed in horror, their hands covering their mouths in disbelief. Others collapsed into tears, clutching loved ones tightly as fear took over. But almost immediately, faith rose to meet the crisis. From scattered pockets of the audience, voices cried out in prayer, "Lord, cover him! Jesus, heal right now!" Hands lifted, circles of intercessors formed, and the auditorium that had begun as a concert hall turned into a unified church. Meanwhile, technology amplified the moment. Cell phones lit up across the room as fans recorded video, live-streamed prayers, and flooded social media with urgent pleas. Hashtags bearing Key's name trended within hours, making what began as a localized emergency into a global prayer movement. On stage, paramedics and staff moved swiftly. Key was guided into a chair, his forehead wiped, his vitals checked. The tension in the air was unbearable. Every second stretched like an eternity. The man so many regarded as a musical father, a pastoral figure, now sat fragile before their eyes. Behind the curtain, moments of uncertainty. As Key was taken backstage, reports later described the scene as tense and chaotic. Eyewitnesses claimed he was drenched in sweat, pale, and fighting to stay alert. Paramedics worked quickly, providing water, checking vitals, and preparing for possible transport. Family members and close team members hovered nearby, their fear etched in their faces. Some backstage recalled hearing frantic calls for an ambulance. Others remembered Key himself, in his pastor's heart, trying to nod reassuringly to those around him despite his obvious distress. Back in the auditorium, silence reigned. The same voices that had once roared in worship now whispered prayers or sat frozen, awaiting any word. Time seemed to stand still, mixed reports and rapid speculation. Eventually, an event organizer addressed the crowd, announcing that Pastor Key was being treated and that the concert could not continue. While the statement was intended to calm, it sparked fresh waves of emotion. Tears flowed freely, not out of disappointment for the music ending, but from sorrow at the fragility of the man they had gathered to celebrate. Meanwhile, social media exploded with speculation. Some posts claimed Key had suffered a cardiac event and was rushed to the hospital. Others insisted it was simple exhaustion. Without official word, the digital rumor mill churned relentlessly. By the next morning, gospel artists, pastors, and celebrities were publicly posting prayers for his recovery, an indication that the situation was indeed serious. A history of health challenges. For longtime followers of Key's ministry, the scare reopened old concerns. Key has often been transparent about his struggles with weight and health. He spoke in past interviews about the toll of constant travel, late nights, and the demands of pastoring while maintaining a prolific music career. Decades on the road, long hours in recording studios, and the emotional labor of leading choirs and congregations had left little time for rest. Key himself had encouraged others to listen to their bodies, yet many wondered aloud if this health crisis was the culmination of years of overexertion. Silence and the waiting game. What made the days following more excruciating was Key's unusual silence. Normally active on social media, where he often shared encouragements and scripture and personal updates, he suddenly went quiet. Supporters grew anxious, blogs speculated, news outlets picked up the story, and rumors of hospitalization gained momentum. Each day of silence felt like another reminder of his vulnerability. The official statement. Finally, nearly 2 days later, his ministry team released a statement. They called it a minor health complication and reassured fans that Key was resting and in good spirits. They asked for continued prayer as he recovered. While many fans were relieved, others felt uneasy. The wording was vague, lacking detail, leaving unanswered questions. Was he hospitalized? Was it exhaustion, dehydration, or something more serious? The statement calmed fears, but did not erase speculation, a divided but prayerful response. The fan base split between gratitude and frustration. Thousands left comments filled with prayers, testimonies, and encouragement. Yet some voiced their discomfort, suggesting the lack of transparency created more worry than comfort. Meanwhile, colleagues in gospel music posted cryptic remarks about the dangers of ignoring God's warnings to rest, intensifying speculation that Key had been overworked for years. A global wave of prayer. But amidst the uncertainty, one thing became undeniable. the gospel community united in unprecedented prayer. Churches hosted prayer vigils. Radio stations played Key's music in continuous tribute. Fans from around the world lifted him before God, turning a health scare into a spiritual rallying point. It was proof of Key's immense impact, that his ministry had extended far beyond his own congregation, or even his albums, embedding itself deeply in the spiritual lives of millions. Rumors of retirement and hard questions. As the days wore on, whispers of retirement began to surface. Reports suggested that doctors had urged Key to drastically reduce his schedule. For fans, the thought of his career winding down was heartbreaking. John P. Key is more than a gospel artist. He is a mentor, choir director, pastor, and pioneer whose songs have become timeless staples of worship. Could this incident mark the beginning of the end of his public ministry? Key breaks his silence. At last, the world heard directly from Key himself. In a heartfelt video, he appeared calm but visibly reflective. He thanked God, his medical team, and the countless fans who had prayed. He acknowledged the seriousness of the scare without sharing specifics, stressing instead the importance of listening to one's body, valuing health, and obeying God's reminders to rest. His words were not self-centered but outward-focused. He urged fans to treat their own health seriously, using his ordeal as a cautionary testimony. The response was overwhelming. Fans expressed relief, gratitude, and admiration for his humility. For many, the video felt like both closure and a sermon in itself, a legacy that cannot be dimmed. The health scare served as a sobering reminder of John P. Key's humanity, yet it also highlighted the immensity of the legacy he has built over more than 4 decades. Few figures in gospel music have managed to combine artistry, pastoral leadership, and mentorship in the way Key has. His voice, unmistakably rich and soulful, has long been a guiding force in the genre, offering not just entertainment but spiritual lifelines for those walking through seasons of despair. Songs like Jesus is real, show up, and Standing in the Need of Prayer have become more than just melodies. They are testimonies set to music, carried in the hearts of believers worldwide. Key's journey from his humble beginnings in Durham, North Carolina, to becoming one of the most influential figures in gospel history is marked by resilience and service. Early in life, he faced challenges that could have derailed him, yet he transformed hardship into inspiration, using his gifts to uplift others. His work as a choir director and mentor has raised generations of gospel artists, many of whom credit him as a spiritual father who not only refined their musical gifts, but also guided their spiritual walk. Even in his moments of vulnerability, Key's influence has only grown stronger. This recent health scare reminded fans and colleagues alike that greatness is not defined by invincibility or constant performance, but by faithfulness, humility, and the willingness to serve. His transparency about struggle, his ability to connect with ordinary people, and his enduring commitment to the message of hope make his legacy one that cannot be dimmed. John P. Key stands as proof that true greatness is measured not by the absence of weakness, but by the power of a life surrendered to God's calling. Lessons for the church and the industry Key's health scare raise deeper questions for both church and gospel music communities. How do we care for leaders who give so much of themselves? How do we encourage balance, rest, and wellness in a culture that often glorifies nonstop ministry? The event served as both a warning and a lesson. God's vessels are powerful, but they are also fragile. To preserve their voices and their callings, intentional care must be taken. The takeaway: a story still unfolding. John P. Key's recent health scare was far more than a singular event. It was a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between human vulnerability and divine purpose. For decades, Key has stood as a beacon in gospel music, a mentor, and a spiritual guide whose influence stretches across generations and continents. That night, as fans witnessed their beloved Prince of Gospel struggle, it became clear that even icons are not immune to the realities of life. Yet within that moment of fear and uncertainty, the response of the community, prayers, support, and collective faith, revealed the profound connection Key has cultivated over a lifetime. In a heartfelt video following the incident, Key reflected with humility and gratitude, reminding audiences of the importance of honoring both God's calling and the human vessel He provides. I am not done yet, but I'm learning to honor the journey God has given me, he said, encapsulating a lifetime of service, resilience, and commitment. His words were both a reassurance and an invitation, a reminder that while his pace may shift, his mission is ongoing. Key's story is still unfolding, a living testament to faith, perseverance, and the enduring power of a legacy that continues to inspire, uplift, and transform lives around the world.